A microbiome is a community of microorganisms that live within a given habitat. So for a plant, this would be the bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms that live in, on, and around the plant. So for example, on the surface of the leaves and among the roots. The microbiome helps a plant to adapt to its local environment. So it helps the plant to access nutrients, water, and also increases the plant's resistance to disease and pests. The plant recruits its microbiome from dust particles in the air, from water, from agricultural inputs, and also from other plants nearby and the soil itself. So one of the most significant benefits of enhancing plant microbiomes is the potential to reduce usage of agrochemicals. Agrochemicals cause environmental damage through leaching of nutrients into local waterways and also high levels of greenhouse gas emissions. So reducing chemical use has real environmental and broader benefits. Other benefits include the reduced requirement for water inputs. Actually, an enhanced microbiome improves the soil structure so that it's able to retain moisture much more effectively. More diverse plant microbiomes also increase carbon sequestration in the soil as they promote root growth, and that helps to lock in carbon. One further benefit of a diverse microbiome is that they've been found to actually increase the nutritional density of food produced by those crops. And that is a real benefit from a food security point of view. If we've got food that is much more nutritionally dense, both from a human health perspective and longer term food security, that's a real benefit of an enhanced and diverse microbiome. One of the main risks with the microbiome or challenges is that given these organisms are microscopic, we can't see them with the human eye, and it makes it quite hard for people to understand the benefit and what those hidden microorganisms are actually doing. And therefore actually getting engagement and momentum behind developing technologies that enhance the microbiome can be quite difficult to do. One of the other challenges with enhancing plant microbiomes is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Every microbiome is unique, and that depends on genetics, it depends on the environment, it's very much both nature and nurture. And what that means is for developing technologies and mechanisms for improving the microbiome is quite challenging because it's different depending on what plant and what environment you're working with. And linked with that, because the microbiome is a living system, the microorganisms interact with each other. It's what we would call a complex adaptive system. So actually, behaviour within that system is not always predictable, and a change in one part of that system, so for example to one of those microorganisms, could impact other aspects of the system. One of the most significant barriers to enhancing microbiomes is it requires a long timescale. So organisations focused on profit are generally looking a year, 2 years ahead, and actually to really improve microbiomes, we're talking about a 5+ year journey to deliver that. So I think one of the things that businesses can do is to help develop a case for change. So given that the microbiome, we're talking about microscopic organisms, we can't actually see them, but helping people to understand what the microbiome is and why we need to change, why potentially we need to use less agrochemicals, what are the implications of doing that. So I think the first one is developing that case for change. Secondly, I think for policymakers, it's about establishing the right incentive mechanisms. So at the moment, particularly within agriculture, subsidies are very focused on the output, it's on the yield, how much is being produced. whereas actually subsidies that focus more on the outcome, so what is the nutritional density of the food produced, what is the impact on the surrounding environment. Subsidies that are much more focused on outcome will deliver more holistic benefits rather than the moment where they're very much focused on output. And finally, I think this is for both businesses and government. There's a role to play in connecting organisations, parties, startups across the ecosystem, and actually enabling startups' brilliant ideas to access the capital and funding that they need to scale, and also the supply chains and the scale of large organisations. They need to tap into that network so that they can successfully scale their ideas. One of the really exciting applications we're seeing of enhancing the microbiome is a process called bee vectoring, and researchers in the US are currently trialling the use of using bees to deliver beneficial microorganisms to plants. So the way it works is as bees leave the hives, they travel across a tray containing these beneficial microorganisms, and then they carry on their bodies and deliver these to the plants as part of the natural pollination process. It's not harmful at all for the bees, but what it does is helps provide the plants with additional microorganisms for their microbiome to increase resilience and resistance to pests and disease. So the purpose of it is to reduce the use of chemical pesticides by using a natural delivery method and using microorganisms to increase the resilience of plants. Another really exciting application for enhancing microbiomes is actually a process called bioremediation. So this is where microorganisms, such as fungi, are brought together to eliminate or neutralise contaminants in soil. So typically contaminated soils, so at brownfield site, they're either treated through removal of that soil or through the application of chemicals or through thermal processes. All of those are quite degrading on the environment, but actually bringing together a community of fungi that are able to break down contaminants through metabolism is a way of regenerating and bringing life back to those brownfield sites. Another brilliant application of using the microbiome, this time for conservation, is helping vulnerable corals to develop resilience to climate change. So in Thailand, researchers have been taking tissue from corals that have a high heat stress tolerance and inoculating more vulnerable corals that are quite sensitive to changes in temperature. And what they found is that can improve and increase the diversity of the microbiome around those vulnerable corals and can significantly reduce the bleaching effects that can be seen from an increase in water temperature. And this is something that could be used within, for example, saline, very salty environments, taking microbiomes from salt-loving plants and using them on plants within agricultural soils that have become very saline. So there's brilliant applications for actually using microbiome transplantation to help crops and I guess from a conservation point of view as the climate changes and temperature increases. Enhancing microbiomes is a brilliant nature-based solution to some of the challenges that we're facing today. So they can significantly reduce the requirement for chemical use in agriculture. They can also help to regenerate degraded land. And I think diverse microbiomes play a real significant role in conservation efforts in the face of a changing planet and increasing temperatures.